I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, Miss Manhattan is a mesmerizing collection of poems that beautifully capture the diverse and dynamic pulse of life in the Big Apple. That's right, New York City. The poems in Miss Manhattan are a celebration of life and creativity, capturing the city's energy and showing how it lives within each individual. We're delighted to have the poet Biman Roy join us here today on Spotlight. And we ask those watching to please support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. Biman, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome.
Loved your book. You got me right away with your first poem about Superman and kryptonite and Robin. And tell me a little bit about what your inspiration is behind writing this collection of poems centered on New York City.
Well, let me tell you at the beginning. I was born in India and came to this country in 1980. And when I came here for the first time, people scared me that New York is horrendous with the crime and all those kinds of stuff. But I loved it. Yeah. The reason being, I came from Calcutta, which was at that time, the Naxalite movement was dying down, and there's a kind of far left movement, and a lot of people got killed. A lot of scores of young people got killed. It was a dangerous place. And I'm a physician, and as a physician, I have to be work in the emergency room, and going out in the middle of the night. I never felt scared. And Calcutta is in many ways very similar to Manhattan, New York, because they both are port cities, both have rich and poor communities in the same place. Both are business hubs, and both are culturally. It's basically Calcutta was the epicenter of culture at that time, with the films, with the Satyajit Ray, and all those people with the art, poetry, and all the stuff. So, so when I came to New York, I got fascinated. I said, "This is the place where I want to be," and that is what I did. I never went to any other city to live, and so once I settled down, I never thought of writing about New York. I was, from the young age, I was writing poetry, I was getting published and all those stuff, even in India. But here, I was new, and finally, I was working. My first job was as a cashier right across Madison Square Garden. And I would write, because I was in the cashier booth. And whenever I have some time, I would think about a haiku. That is the first time I started writing haiku, because it's a short poem. So I'll keep it in my mind. And middle of the night, when my shift is done, I'll go all the way back to Queens, where I used to live, Rego Park, Queens. And my first thing would be to get into the room and get a notebook and write down the haiku that I have in my head. Right? So that's how it started. But the idea of writing about Manhattan came much later. In late 90s, I got invited to the World Congress of Psychiatry and to Athens, Greece. And I was very excited because Athens, in many ways, similar to New York, as a cultural hub, as a business kind of center, and even the grid, the structural grid in Athens, ancient Athens, we did it in New York, the same structural grid, and the democracy. So there are so many common things. There itself, what happened, I have a friend there, and we were talking about different things. He's Greek, and we were talking about many things. Then he talked about Sappho, the famous, like 2,500 years ago almost, and the poet, great poet.
Mhm.
And I didn't read any of her poems at that time. So when I came back, I looked for a book and I got Anne Carson's beautiful translation of Sappho, the fragments. I was absolutely fascinated. Then an idea came to my mind, let me write a book on New York with Sappho on my mind.
Mhm.
That was the first intent. So I wrote quite a few poems. It was like straightforward narrative. It worked well, but some of the poems I was not happy with it. I thought that I have to add something to it to make it really live and thrilling and to bring it to a different level. So I added some poems you'll find in the book has a fragment in it within the poem embedded, and that is quote from Sappho. And that made the book uh, totally different. It took those poems uh, to a much higher level, and I was very satisfied. And when I started it, I think I started writing. I was thinking about it, going to different places, and started writing right after 9/11. When 9/11 happened, I said, no, I can't wait. I have to write it. So that is the time I write. It took me kind of 3 years to complete the book.
Mhm.
So that's where we are.
Is there a favorite poem of yours in the book? Is there one that you really love that's your baby?
Yeah, there are many, but I will read the main one, that is Miss Manhattan.
Okay.
Okay. Miss Manhattan is addressed, is not, it's a dual kind of meaning. Miss Manhattan, in one sense, I'm addressing to the city,
Mhm.
but I'm also, the poem is not about the city. The poem is on um, Munson, the Audrey Munson, the first Miss Manhattan, the supermodel, the first supermodel, Miss Manson, and um, whose statues are like all over the place. Like she has like 30 statues all over the place in New York and other places also. And it was so unfortunate that she was kind of used and in the business and all those things. People used her, and so and then she was hospitalized in St. Lawrence, upstate New York, where she lived in a mental asylum
Mhm.
uh, for 65 years and died at the age of 104.
Wow.
And that was her life. So uh, I thought it's so interesting that here is a woman who is the real Miss Manhattan, and look at her life, but what she has contributed
Mm.
is enormous. So I can read that poem.
Oh, I'd love to hear it. Absolutely.
How casually she lies on her bed in the park, shaded by flowering lilacs, a few pigeons nested in her folds, catnapping. Her gracious face, half resting on nimble hands, contained and content in reposed solitude. For years I have tried to turn from her gaze, yet she is all over, atop monuments, at the mouths of bridges, guarding museums, flanking greeneries of an obsolete past. And the grandeur of her body softens the sky almost to a whisper. All I remember is her shedding clothes and letting the butterfly out, but no one has seen her shedding tears afterward, or the 65 years of asylum silence that she rode on alone like a pure drop of water borne to the sea on a lotus leaf. Only the gypsy fortune teller, whispering in her younger years a twisted future, and the hissing wind over St. Lawrence River. All she wanted, perhaps, love's assurance, a few earthly comforts, and the menacing voices of dark to disappear, in return for writing an ode to beauty, with her body for a privileged city. The last, the last part is a quote from Sappho. Among mortal women, know this, from every care you could release me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That is quite a poem. That is quite a poem. How long ago did you write that?
I'm sorry?
How long ago did you write that?
I wrote it, I would say, almost 16, 17 years ago.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I'm glad you hung on to it for all those years to be published in this book because it's quite a poem, that's for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
How old were you when you came to the United States?
I was in my 30s.
Okay.
Early
Okay.
30s, yeah.
So you've seen a lot of changes in New York City over the years. I remember like the Dinkins era when there was a lot of crime, and then Giuliani came and cleaned it all up, and then de
Right.
Blasio had his era where it seemed to melt down a little bit. What's your take on what New York City is all about? Is New York City going to profoundly change? I mean, you consider a lot of people aren't going to New York City anymore to work. They're working remotely like this. What do you think's in store for the city? Look into your future, into the crystal ball a little bit, and tell us the future.
See, I think, I compare it to humans.
Hmm.
If you have good genes, you live longer, no
Right.
matter how much you suffer, how much illness you have, all those stuff, but you live longer, a long life. And as a physician, I know that for sure.
Hmm.
And it's just like that, cities have, if they have good genes,
Hmm.
they live longer. I'll compare it again with Athens, Greece, where I went, and it is still there, still vibrant. Think how many years it has been there and
Yeah.
still vibrant, and with all kinds of difficulties and all kinds. I do not think at all that New York will kind of fade away
Hmm.
or disappear. People, when people, new uh, people, generation, they try to imitate you, follow you. You are at the top,
Hmm.
and worldwide, people follow New York. So I do not think at all for a moment that the city is going to disappear. It will flourish. I mean, there are times ups and downs will be there always, but I have strong feeling the city will be there and will be flourishing.
Yeah. It might evolve, it might change. You talk
Right,
about good genes.
right, right,
Sometimes even a person with good genes gets hit by a car.
right. Exactly, exactly.
And
Just
that's what 9/11 was. It was getting hit by a car, right?
right. But think after 9/11, the city didn't go back. The city prospered, and in many ways. And the also the strength is it's the multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multilingual, and the enormous growth in terms of culture, um, all kinds of things. It is unimaginable. And I have gone to some other cities, visited some other cities, but I still feel New York is very strong inside. and the spirit of New Yorkers. And there
Yeah.
is a poem in if you a short poem, if you tell
Oh,
me.
I'd love to hear it. Absolutely. What's the title of the poem?
I'm just trying.
Just for the folks at home who are watching, as Biman finds the poem, the name of the book is Miss Manhattan, and it is a wonderful collection of poems that really capture the essence of New York City, captures the life, the tone, the pulse, and everything that defines the city. And it's delightful talking with him here today. And he's about to read one of his poems about the city to us. And the book is available online. And you can download it on Kindle. You can get a hardcover. You can get a paperback. It's a beautiful book, beautiful cover art as well. And again, it is called Miss Manhattan. It really is a celebration of life and creativity. It captures the city's energy and shows how it lives within each person who dwells in the city. And it's really a city that is multiple cities because, of course, New York City is made up of 5 boroughs: Manhattan, Queens, Bronx, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. And each one of them has a flavor and a personality of its own. Also, New York City is an area that has an ocean. People don't realize it, but you can actually be in New York City and take the subway to the ocean. You can go to a spot like Coney Island in Brooklyn or the Rockaways in Queens and enjoy the beautiful seashore. And I think, Biman, you found the poem, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
It's called Night of a New Yorker.
Mm-hmm.
At White Horse Tavern, I face the refracted city light through the amber of Guinness, with a well-toned crowd of young bodies, way after Dylan Thomas settled his score with the war. Dylan Thomas was killed there. I mean, he drank too much in that White Horse Tavern, and in the hotel room he passed away.
Mm.
His shade still hovers over his portrait in the back room, as in the days of Mailer, Norman Mailer, hounding his manly convictions, or at night, Delmore Schwartz reciting pages from Finnegan's Wake. As night deepens, 4 firemen saunter in with the boots caked in ash, helmets smoked. A sudden fire of defiance rolls over sawdust. Waitresses dance with firemen on tabletops. Strangers kiss and weep. We are New Yorkers. We refuse to surrender.
Wonderful. That really does capture the strength and character of New Yorkers.
This incident did happen, really.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. You've done a really wonderful job of capturing the life of Manhattan within poetry, and that's no easy task. But I guess the city kind of has a rhythm and a cadence and a pentameter all of its own, don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah,
I do think that. Yes.
absolutely. Have you written anything else? Is this your first work? Your one of many works? Tell me about your work as an author.
This is the first full book. I have another 3 chapbooks already published. One is a prose poem of Moon and Washing Machine, and another is Dinosaur Hour. It's a book of poems, and the third one is something about. It was just recent, and that was also an experimental work.
Right.
My daughter's notes,
Mm.
and
Interesting. You know, I know you're living just outside of New York City now. So do you miss Manhattan? How often do you get into Manhattan?
I
Tell me
do,
about that.
yeah, I do miss Manhattan a lot because I used to travel almost very frequently to Manhattan, and on the weekends, and particularly while writing this book, I would select a place or some object or something. I'll go there. I'll visit quite a few times and have the feel of the place because uh, writing about a place is really not just writing about the place.
Mm,
It can in prose you can do that, but in poetry it can be just a feeling, a fantasy, or some or a dream. Uh, all these things are associated with it. So I'll go back and look at the place and come back to Ridgewood and
mm,
write it down. And then when I get an off day from my work, um, I'll go again. And
yeah.
so that's the way I did it. Um, so and it was very alive in my mind but now with the pandemic, you are not going that many times, but things will change. So I'll be
Yeah.
back there again.
Absolutely. Is there a favorite place in Manhattan for you? Is it a neighborhood, a restaurant, a landmark, a site, a park? What's your favorite part of Manhattan?
Mostly the downtown area.
Hmm.
Mostly that's the place. And um, because we had a cousin who was professor in NYU, and he passed away
Hmm.
2 years ago. Um, and so I used to visit New York very, very
Yeah.
often. It became part of my thinking process, basically.
Hmm. Absolutely. I find, yeah, I've got strong roots in Manhattan as well. My dad was born in Manhattan on William Street downtown, and I've spent a lot of my career working in Manhattan. So it's the kind of city you can fall in love with. It's such a romantic city. It's such a timeless city. The streets in downtown that you talk about, William Street, my dad was born in 1918, and I don't think those streets have changed very much. There's a couple of different buildings, maybe a couple of the tenements are gone, but there's the timelessness, what I love. Grand Central Station, it could be 1942 when you're standing in the center of it. It could be 1972. It could be 2023, and you wouldn't know the difference. And that's what I love. Coney Island is another spot I love, you know, just filled with joy and people. And it's just a complete show just watching the people walk back and forth in Coney Island, don't you think?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes.
Is there a particular spot that you love? I know you said downtown. Do you feel the same way about Grand Central? It's such a gem in our
Yes,
city.
yes, yes, definitely. Definitely, I feel that. And it reminds me of mm, some of the places in India, particularly in Calcutta. And there is a huge station, Howrah station, and it reminds that was built by the Britishers, and old station, and it was kind of mind-boggling. And absolutely, absolutely, there are some places where and then there are many strange places that people even do not know.
Mm,
Very interestingly, and I have a poem on that also. Very interestingly, one day I was walking on the East 4th Street, and I saw a kind of in a building there is upstairs a bar. I said, "What is this? Let me go and check." And it says KGB.
mm,
And I said, KGB? I said, oh, wow. And I walked, and when I went upstairs, I thought I saw a photograph of Lenin,
Mm.
and so that hammer and sickle flag, and so I was kind of wondering where I am. Anyway, I went to the bartender, asked for a beer, and sat down. And there is some quite nice space and everything. A few minutes later, people started coming in, gather. I said, "Is there something going on?" He said, "Oh, we are going to have a poetry reading."
Mm.
Poetry reading? They said, "Yes, we do have. I think once a week or something, they have regular poetry reading, and very well known poets come there to read their poems." And I enjoyed, of course, I said, "Oh, this is great." And so I enjoyed the reading and everything. And then I asked again the bartender, what is the name? It is KGB. And so he smiled. He said, "People always get confused. It is called Crane Gallery Bar." Crane is he is the owner of the bar. So it is called KGB. So I
That's
have a poem
funny.
on that also. Yes, I mean, you never find, and that is the part that I was kind of fascinated with is that poetry is everywhere,
Mm.
even in a bar named KGB.
Exactly. Even in an era or a place where usually free speech is forbidden, the
Right,
KGB, it's
exactly.
there. Yeah, it was funny when you're talking. I used to go to a bar, I guess it was in the 1990s, called Pravda,
Huh?
which is also a throwback to the USSR. It's amazing that there are so many discoveries you can make in Manhattan. I
Yeah.
think you could eat in a different restaurant every day for the rest of your life, for example. And every little, little streets you probably have never walked upon, even though you've walked upon so many of the streets, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's such an amazingly big city. At times it feels like a small city because everything is, cut off and divided into neighborhoods, but there is so much to explore, so much to see. One of my favorite spots, of course, is just sitting in Battery Park and gazing out at the river and looking at the Statue of Liberty.
Yes,
Such a beautiful area as well.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Central Park, another gem, complete with a zoo. It probably takes up about 25% of the landmass of Manhattan, Central Park. If you look at a map, you have a
Right,
little bit of Manhattan around it and a huge park in the middle, right?
right.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I wish you a lot of luck with this book. It's a terrific book. Do you want to leave the audience with one more poem? Is there another poem you could share with us?
Sure.
Again, as Biman finds that the name of the book is Miss Manhattan. It is available online. You can download it. You can buy the hardcover. You can buy the paperback. It's a wonderful book. It's a mesmerizing collection of poems. It captures the diversity of New York City, the dynamic pulses of life here in New York City. And it really does a terrific job. And here's Biman with that poem.
This poem is called Hotel Chelsea. And you know Hotel Chelsea, the history, the all kinds of things that have happened and everything.
Mhm.
And I initially wrote the poem, but looking at the poem, I said, it is, everything is there, but something is missing. And I kept on thinking and thinking, and uh, suddenly uh, Sappho came to my mind. I said, let me do that. And I used one of her fragments, and it totally changed the meaning of the poetry. It took it to totally at a different level. Okay, Hotel Chelsea. I have always lived close to a river, a different river each time. Now it's the Hudson. Sun slants from the east, air pierced by arrows of buntings, and crests of lapis lazuli drift slowly shoreward. Not too far from here, secret corridors and shadowy forests, wolf-like, foreboding dread, tales of murder suicides splattered on weepy walls. A hotel Chelsea of the heart, where we come to fend the salt of our meat. It makes me feel safe and useful as each night I gather my Sappho limbs close to my ribs at each bend of river and say, into desire I shall come. These last two lines, into desire I shall come, it came from Sappho.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's a beautiful poem. It's very, very touching, very, very meaningful. It's one of many in the book, Miss Manhattan. It's available wherever you buy books. It's available on Amazon. You can download it to Kindle. You can get the hardcover. The art is beautiful on the cover of the book as well. It's kind of a book you'd like to have in the house. It's a beautiful book of poems, inside and out. And Biman Roy, we're delighted to have you here on Spotlight. Thank you so much for joining me.
Just one addition.
Sure.
The cover page is done by me. I drew my own covers.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Well, it caught my eyes. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I paint and do my own book covers.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, you're a very talented man, no doubt. A physician, a poet, and an artist. Thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Oh,
sir.
thank you. And I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you at home for your time. This time, until next time,
Great pleasure.
on
It's a
Spotlight.
great pleasure to talk to you.
It's been a pleasure as well.